Alright, so today we're going to look at fractions, decimals, and percentage. A couple things to just kind of lay the foundation is the word percent means parts out of 100. Right, so we know that fractions, something like 2/5, that is a part of a whole. We know decimals, I don't know, something like maybe 48/100, that's part of a whole. That's, not the whole thing. This is the parts that make up the whole. 5 out of 5 would be one whole, so 2/5 is a part of a whole. So all of these things are typically parts of a whole. So they're always related. There's going to be a fraction that will equal a decimal, and it will be able to be go to a percent. And we can change back and forth between these and get something that's equivalent or equal. So first I want to start off with fractions. There's a couple different ways to do this. If I take that original fraction of 2/5, and if I want to go ultimately to a percentage, then there's two different routes I can go. Percent, we know, means out of 100. So I can use this part over the whole, which part over the whole is equal to the percent out of 100. So I'm going to set up what's called a proportion, and I only can do this if the denominator goes into 100. That's the only time I really want to do it. There's other times you can do it later on, but that's when it's nice. So the part over the whole is 2 out of 5. The part over the whole is equal to the percent out of 100. So if I know 5 can go into 20, I can look at this and I can get kind of like an equivalent thing. So 5, how do I get to 100? Well, I multiply that by 20. 5 times 20 makes 100. So 2 times 20 is going to make 40. So 2/5 equals 40%. 2/5 equals 40%. Another way that I could do it, if I took 2/5, this fraction bar here means to divide. This is 2 divided by 5, which I would set up as 2 divided by 5. Now I'm looking at it and saying 5 doesn't go into 2. Well, I must have messed up. Well, the reason I didn't mess up is because 2 out of 5 is less than one whole. If I had 5, pieces of licorice in a bag, and I only had 2 pieces of licorice, I have less than one bag. So it's going to go in 0 times. What I can do is add a decimal point. I typically like to go 2 spots. You can go further if you need to. Raise the roof on the decimal point. 5 goes into 20. 4 times 5 is 20. And then I got a 0. 5's going into 0 times. So what I just found out is 2/5 is equal to 40/100. Okay, so I changed that fraction to a decimal by division. 2 divided by 5 is 40/100. You'll notice this is 40/100. That means out of 100, which is exactly the percent. So that's 40%. 40/100, 40%. The percent means out of 100, and that's exactly what I said, 40/100. Let's do another one. Let's say maybe I had a number like 18/25. So I can use this part over a whole equals the percent out of 100 in this one for the simple reason that 25 can go into 100. 25 times 4 makes 100. So 18 times 4 is going to be 72. So 18/25 equals 72 hundredths. 72 hundredths is the same thing as 72 hundredths. They're equal to each other, which is 72%. 72 hundredths, 72 hundredths. This means 72 hundredths as well. Percent means out of 100. Those are all equal to each other. They're the same thing. If I got 18 out of 25 on a test, I earned a 72%. All right, if I did the division way, 18 divided by 25. 25 is not going into 18. It's going to go into 180 7 times to give me 175. Subtract, I have 5 left, bring down, 25 goes into 50 twice. So again, notice I get that. Alright, so we can set up a proportion, to change it to a percentage, or we can do division. Sometimes that may be 3/8. Something like this. 8's not going to go into 100 nicely, so could you figure it out? Yes, but probably a little bit faster way would be to do 3 divided by 8, so we'll set that up. 8's not going to go into 3, it's going to go into 30. 3 times 8 is 24. Subtract, I get 6. Bring down, 8 goes into 60. It's going to be 7 times 8 is 56. Subtract, 4 left. I'm going to add another 0. 8 goes into 40. 5 times 8 is 40. So this one is a little bit different. And this is where we first start to kind of really have to think about changing a decimal to a percentage. So I do know that 3/8 is equal to 375 thousandths. Those are equal to each other. 375 thousandths. All of these three are equal to each other. Now to change that to a percentage, percent, right, equals out of 100. Couple different series of thoughts. If you're really confident with it, then you could say, well, I know 7 is in the hundredths place, so that's 37%, and then the decimal would go right there. 37 whole percent, I have 37 hundredths, and then that leaves me with the 0.5, 37.5%. Another way you could go about it is we have been working on multiplying by 100, which essentially moves the decimal twice, 37.5%. So going from a decimal to a percent, you're going to multiply by 100, which moves the decimal twice. I got to focus on the hundredths, the numbers that are hundredths. I have 37 hundredths, that's why it's 37 whole percent. And then everything else is after the decimal point. Feel like that leads us pretty well into going from a decimal to a percent. So if I'm given a decimal, maybe the decimal is, I don't know, 24 hundredths. 24 hundredths is going to be 24%. Again, we just talked about I could take 24 hundredths and multiply it by 100, which is going to ultimately move it twice, so that's going to be 24%. Sometimes I get a bigger, I get a longer one, so maybe 385 thousandths, right? That's 385 thousandths. Well, this one, I have 38 wholes, or 38 hundredths, and 5 left over. 38.5%. When I multiply it by 100, the decimal is going to go twice. If I get, I'll show you two more real quick. if I get something like 2,357 10,000ths, same idea. The hundredths, there's 23 hundredths, so that would be 23.57%. Or if I multiplied it by 100, that's going to go 2 spots. So the decimal's going right there. Focus on the hundredths. That's what percent I have. The rest of it's a part of a percentage. 23 whole percent and part of a percent. Simply, if I want to go from a decimal to a fraction, I just have to speak the number. I'm going to use the same ones. 24, this is just, you will just have to speak it. It's really all you need to do. 24 hundredths is 24 hundredths. Then you can reduce it. If I had 375 thousandths, that's 375 over 1,000, then reduce. If I have 9,875 10,000ths, that would be 9,875 over 10,000. And then I can reduce it down. Reducing would be, what number goes into both, and divide by that. So for instance, here, 24 over 100, I can divide them by 4, and that's going to be 6 over 25 would also be equal to these. Those are all equal to each other. That's what you could do with that. The last thing I want to do is start off with the percentage and go to a decimal. So again, we want to, all these are equal to each other. Fractions, decimals, and percents can be equal. So if I had 98%, that percent means out of 100, so that would equal 98 hundredths, which is 98 over 100. These are all equal to each other. 27% is 27 hundredths. That means out of 100, 27 hundredths. If I had something like 19.5%, this is where maybe it's a little bit harder, but essentially it's 195 thousandths. And what's going on? The decimal, right? If the decimal would be right here, it's moving twice this way. The decimal will be right here, it's moving twice this way. So I continue to do that pattern, and mathematically what's going on when you're going twice to the left is you're dividing by 100. How I can keep it forth, when do I multiply by 100, when do I divide by 100? Well, I start off with this percent sign, which kind of looks like a division sign. So if I see the percent sign, I know I need to divide by 100 to get me to my decimal. The percent sign kind of looks like a division sign, helps me in my mind to keep it straight. So if I had, maybe I had 135 and 0.2%. Okay? So I see the percent sign, which is, to change it, I need to divide. So I'm going to divide by 100, which is going to go right there. That's going to be 1 and 352 thousandths. 1 and 352 thousandths. Changing between a fraction, a decimal, and a percentage.